Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, and welcome once again to the Vigo County Capital Improvement Board of Managers meeting for February 16th, 2022. Mr. Bramble, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Conley?
Here.
Ms. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Marvel?
Here.
And Mr. Commissioner
Schweitzer.
Schweitzer.
I'm just kidding. Here.
And we're missing Dave Patterson, Mayor, and Steve Witt.
They have all called and reported in that they wouldn't be here today, so if the minutes would reflect that we do have a quorum with 4 members here. Item number 4 in our, item number 3 in our agenda today is, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
Mr. President Marvel, Mr. Bosma, if this is okay, I was confused and I forgot that Terry and Emily are part of the Finance Committee meeting, so I canceled the meeting yesterday because I thought it was still Dave and the mayor, or Dave and Steve Witt. So if we could, can I do that right now? Would that be appropriate?
Good.
All right, Emily, Terry, welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. It's a lot of fun. Call this meeting to order. Today is the 16th of February. It looks like we have claims for Shelley Claim for the amount of $4,167. Kroger, Gardis, and Regas for the amount of $27,066.45. Commercial Office Environments, $13,173.69. Modern Office, $40,243. C.H. Garmong and Son Incorporated, $504,694.62. Nations Group, $29,500. CSO Architects, $13,191.39. Snaplock Industries, $3,695.80. And finally, nope, just kidding, there's another one. Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, $6,478.86. And the last one is RJL Solutions, LLC for $2,500. So typically what we'll do is we'll make a motion to approve these invoices a second, then we'll all vote, and then have to get your guys' signatures on top of those. So if anybody wants to make a motion.
Just real quick, what is Snaplock?
I believe it's the doors. Yes, that'd be hardware for doors. All kinds of stuff. Brian, do you have a better description of Snaplock or Mark back there? Says 3x3 panels, female edge, male edge.
Gotta push the button. There you go.
It's definitely not doors. So yeah, you guys are welcome to review these real quick. And then
Yeah, I don't have any questions with what was, I'll make a motion to approve the invoices.
A second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So, Mr. President, if you will show in the minutes, Karen, that there was a recess of the CIB meeting, convening of the Finance Committee, and then reconvening of the CIB.
Okay, before we reconvene though, we gotta approve last month's minutes. So, you guys can read these if you want to part of the Finance Committee meeting at the time. I'll take care of those as well.
I make a motion to approve last month's finance minutes.
I'll second that.
All in favor, by aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? What I'll do, Mr. Bosworth, if that's okay, I'll collect all these signatures after the meeting.
Sure, that's fine. Mr. President, on the question of amending the agenda, I don't think you need to amend the agenda for this, but I did get a request from RJL Solutions, Victoria, Mark, to make a brief presentation at some point, perhaps at the end of old business or whenever you'd like.
Okay.
I appreciate you guys letting me have the Finance Committee meeting right now. I apologize.
And may I ask a procedural question? So with two new members, what's the practice on circulating what's going to happen at the Finance Committee meeting? I've never asked that.
So usually, some days we don't get invoices, Mr. Bosma, up until the night before. Yeah,
right.
so usually we don't circulate anything. We'll just come in, we'll all review them over that half hour. We'll talk about whatever issues. Usually, everybody's in the meeting to ask questions if we have questions,
Right.
and then we'll review them that day.
And ladies, those
And
generally
approve.
happen at 8:30 on the morning of the CIB, so for convenience sake.
It's a ton of fun.
If I can look at it, you guys look at it, because they come just look at it, they don't know.
Okay, all right. We may decide if it's over a certain dollar amount, we may want them prior to the meeting so we can review it. I'll let you know.
All right, the Finance Committee meeting is adjourned. This is for the minutes, and we'll resume now our regular meeting. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from January the 19th, 2021. Has all the board members had the opportunity to review those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve if there's no questions.
Motion's been made,
I'll second that.
and Emily has seconded that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. Under old business, 5.1, an update on the construction progress from Garmong and Brian Koistra. Good morning.
Glad John spoke on things. You guys don't want me anywhere near one, let alone
Oh, first of all, congratulations on your new position at Garmong.
I moved into the role of technical vice president, and Paul Oakson is our president.
Basically, what it means is he's the man, pretty much.
All right, construction overview. So we are heading down the home stretch. Current GMP amount, $27,176,007. That is reflective of a change of $67,750, which is a result of the museum under slab electric and concrete slab. Schedule, project is on schedule. 2 weeks from tomorrow will be March 3rd, and we will be turning the facility over as planned. And just an update on the design, the museum, we received the build-out drawing, so really what takes the unfinished space and turns it into more or less of a white box. Drywall, heating and cooling, house lighting, ceiling paint, and really prepares that space for the museum exhibits and that phase of work to take over. So we've received those drawings. We're in the process of putting pricing together. We anticipate having that packaged up and ready for review and approval by the end of this week. Recent progress. So wall protection is complete. There's some corner guards and bump rail in the back of house hallway. That work has been done. Final cleaning and window cleaning is complete. Garmong did our own internal punch list over the last few weeks. and that work is complete. Elevator inspection, so the state came in on Friday and inspected the elevator and gave us the certificate to operate the elevator now. The AV system, security cameras, wireless access points are all in place. CES, or Cellular Enhancement System, is in the final stages of being completed. Owner training, we're probably 80% done with owner training. So examples would be the operable partitions. The installer of those comes in, meets with Spectra and their team, provides them training on how to operate them, how to maintenance them, how to open and close them, things of that nature. And there's dozens of items just like that that we've performed training on. We've videotaped all the training. We'll hand that over to Spectra, so when they bring on new employees, they've got a resource to train them with, or perhaps refresher training. Parking garage, the elevator lobby, so at the 5th floor we had to enclose that area. That work is now complete. And then in the museum, the concrete slab was poured this past Monday. So it was nice to see that area finally starting to progress. Upcoming activities in the convention center, we'll complete the kitchen final connections and startup. I believe that's scheduled to happen next week. We'll complete any remaining owner training. Any final cleaning will be taken care of. CSO, they're the project architect. They were on site Monday to do their own punch list. We hope to have that in our hands today, and then we'll have a week or two to address any items that they saw. Signage installation is scheduled to take place the week of February 28th. And John Rawlings from Nations Group, he might expand upon that. Parking garage equipment installation is scheduled to begin February 22nd. And we've got the elevator final inspection for the parking garage to take place the week of 2/28. Site work, so this is, the last hurdle remaining. They were out pouring concrete yesterday, pouring concrete again today. So whenever the opportunity presents itself, we're out there. If weather permits, I think we can get it done before March 3rd, but there's a chance it could extend a little bit past that. But again, with the opening not scheduled till April, I don't see any problem having it complete by that date. The museum, as soon as we get approval on this next round of pricing, we'll begin roughing in electrical into the walls. Ductwork installation is going to begin tomorrow. We'll frame the closets and we'll hang the drywall in that space. Closeout activity. So this is the same slide I went over last month, but I thought it was worth presenting again. So final cleaning was scheduled to begin January 31st, and that's now complete. Garmon punch list, I talked about that, is complete. CSO was out on Monday to do their punch list. Owner training is taking place. Closeout documents and attic stock or additional materials, all that is being prepared and packaged up, and we'll hand that over the week around 2/25. We've got the certificate of occupancy inspection, so that's the local building inspector and the fire chief locally. We'll walk the building the week of 2/28, and we'll receive our certificate of occupancy, which really allows the building to be used for its intended purpose, and then achieve substantial completion and turn over the facility on March 3rd. So everything's in place to make that happen. I don't see any issues with that. Recent progress, shot from the webcam, close-up of the south entrance, south elevation, east elevation between the Convention Center and the Copper Bar. This is the west elevation, some new additions in this area. You can see the dumpster enclosures are completed. The ballroom is really looks sharp. It's cleaned up. Everything's done. I mean, it really, it's an impressive space. The pre-function area, view from the lobby. It's kind of a neat feature. Underneath the monumental stair, it's got terrazzo top, and then it's got these river rock feature in that area. Those are the state record pivot doors that are installed. Second floor catering space. So when you have breakout sessions upstairs and lunch is served, they'll bring food up the elevator and go into the second floor catering room and prepare the food and deliver it to the rooms. This photo's a little bit hard to see, but this is the decorative panel that was added at the north entrance. So as you enter from the parking garage, that was a drywall wall, and there was a desire to jazz that up a little bit. So those decorative panels are now installed. This is the back of house area. You can see the corner guards and the bump rail along the bottom to protect the wall. Kitchen equipment, coffee makers, all that equipment is now in place. Shot of the kitchen. Here's a photo of the museum concrete slab that was poured on Monday. North entrance paver installation has been completed. You can see, if you squint and look real hard, you can see some signage that is being installed on the exterior of the parking garage, the side that faces the Holman Center. You're looking at the main entrance there, with the remainder of the signage to take place later this month. Just a shot along Cherry Street. Dumpster enclosures behind the Copper Bar are completed. This is the 5th floor elevator lobby area that was enclosed. There's a photo from the inside of that space now. And the Hilton Garden connector, which is completed, looks sharp. Here's a photo from the inside. So you can see kind of the openness to the dining area and the Hilton Garden Inn. The finishes in that connector match the finishes in the Hilton Garden Inn, and when you walk through those two spaces, it really, it makes sense as you're walking through. You can kind of, the connector feels like it's part of the Hilton Garden Inn, and then you cross a set of doors and it feels like you're in the convention center, which is good. Before we get to questions, I know I stand up here every month and act like I've built this thing all by myself, but I think you guys are smart enough to know better. So I brought really the three guys that are responsible for all of the progress, and I think by any measure this has been a great project. So I'm gonna make them stand up. I promised them they wouldn't have to say anything. So any questions, I think I'll have to answer them for them. Get up here. I've got Steve Elkins. Steve is the project superintendent. Mark Merrill is the project manager, and Tyler Evans was the project engineer. Couple interesting things to note is you've got I think this is right, a Terre Haute North, a Terre Haute South, and a West Vigo graduate here.
Right.
All three live in Vigo County, have families, and have stayed and are contributing to the community. You've got a former ISU football player, a current youth football coach, a former Marine, a union carpenter. I mean, this is really just a great hometown story of of the talent that we've got here and, you know, what people in our community can do. So, yeah, please.
It is a great story.
I couldn't be more proud of these guys. They've really, you know, taken what is a difficult and challenging project and really made it look easy. So, tip of the hat to you guys.
Steve, Steve has some, do you have something you want to say, Steve? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I appreciate you indulging me in that, but would be happy to answer any questions you have.
I just have one question. In the pre-function area, there will be tables, stand-up tables, and will those come through Spectra's furniture?
I'm not sure if there's stand-up tables or not, John. I know there's some soft seating. I would defer to John Rawlings maybe, or to Neil, to the, you know, exactly the types there. But yeah, there is furniture called out in front of those windows.
Okay.
Let me ask a question. Mr. President,
Yes.
thank you. Brian, first of all, I just want to just say something, and then I do have a question for you. So I've probably been involved in 120-ish public construction projects, small to very large, and despite some of the challenges, you all have done a great job, and I mean that for everybody. It's been without major issues. Sure, there's issues on every project, but you've just done a wonderful job. That's you, Nations Group, the board, your contractors, et cetera. I did not see on your closeout list, often overlooked but included in your contract item, and that is post-construction maintenance manuals. Are those?
Yeah, so
In the
O&M
works.
manuals is what we would refer to them as.
Yep.
Tyler's in the process of completing those, and that will be part of that February 25th turnover. That'll include the O&M manuals, as-built drawings, all the keys for the various items, you know, from paper towel dispensers to access doors. We'll label all of that, turn all that over. So.
And then who all's involved in the closeout, the turnover?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, right now, we will transmit everything to presumably Spectra and ask for a signature, and we'll document that handover process. Speaking of the O&M manuals, the process there is we submit all of that to CSO for review and approval. And once it's approved, then it's finalized, and then we would turn it over to the owner. I guess I would look to you or the board on who exactly that should be. I mean, really, everything now is electronic, so we could hand
Right.
over multiple copies to whomever, but
Yeah, I think the board needs to have a copy as
Okay.
well, maybe us, just so there's, you know, multiple copies and not just in Spectra's possession.
okay.
And then, and Nations Group, what involvement do they have in the turnover? Is that something they supervise also to confirm contract
I'll
compliance?
defer
Okay.
that to John.
And then, punch list.
CSO performed, so we did our own internal punch list. That's complete, which is really a prerequisite to asking CSO to come out. So ours is done. We sent that to CSO a week or so ago. They came out Monday with, I think, 2, 3, maybe more folks, walked the building, and some of you will get a chuckle out of this, but Joe Raper, who is, I would say hard to please, was extremely complimentary. I think he might even smiled once or twice. So that was, I think, a indication of a job well done. So we expect to have their punch list today. You know, I don't know how many items will be on it, but my assumption is it's going to be relatively small, just given the current state of the building. But we will have it completed, documented, signed off on, and sent back to them by the time we're complete.
And then one more for the board's edification. Your final payment of the guaranteed maximum price procedure for that?
So, just to kind of back up, so our contract is based upon a guaranteed maximum price. So there's a ceiling for what the contract can be based upon a defined scope of work. And, you know, right now the GMP is 27 million some odd dollars. It's going to take a few months for all final invoices to come in and get processed and paid. But once that happens, we'll reconcile all accounts and tally up what our costs were per the contract, and any difference there, I can tell you it will be under the GMP. And whatever that delta is gets returned to the CIB or essentially is just not billed for. And there will be money there, potentially six figures returned, low six figures, I would say. In addition to the contingency, which currently exists, probably about 130,000 plus maybe 40,000 of allowances. So there's going to be, we're going to come in under the budget. But it's going to take a little bit of time. And then the museum, although we're accounting for it separately, somewhat muddies the water a little bit on that. But, you know, as soon as we can, we'll reconcile that, and our CFO will prepare some paperwork for review, and we can have a meeting, do whatever you like to close the books on it.
Do we have an inventory of our stock, our attic stock, as you say?
You will, yes.
Okay.
We'll document, and the specifications dictate that, you know, maybe for carpet tile, we have to give you 10% of the quantity that was installed. And so we'll track all of that, and we'll document it. We'll transmit a piece of paper that says, here's exactly what you received. And then we like to go even a step further and label all the boxes and provide a finished plan. So, you know, if this is acoustic ceiling tile number 3, you've got a drawing that tells you what room acoustic ceiling tile 3 is in, and then you can match it up with the attic stock. So we try to make that as easy as possible. Same with paints. There's a handful of items that they call for attic stock, mostly finished type materials. You know, we're not giving you 5 extra doors or things of that nature.
Where are we storing these items?
We were going to purchase like a steel rack and locate it. Did we decide where we're putting it? So one in a storage room in the building, and then we were going to put a couple more in the parking garage storage room, things that are not temperature sensitive, and kind of break up the storage of those between those two spaces.
What would you estimate our square footage that we need to store these items?
3 racks. Say a rack is 2 foot by 6 foot, so 2 foot by 18 foot, 36 square feet. Is a rough guess.
Brian, I know you just received the final schematics on the museum design. Do you have an estimated timeline to, as you put it, kind of finish out that white box?
Yeah, so if we have pricing complete this week, say we get a quick approval, I think 2 months and really it's to rough in all the electric, hang the drywall, finish the drywall, paint the drywall. We've got to frame a couple rooms. We've got to paint the ceiling structure above. We've got to build the storefront. There's a vestibule, a glass vestibule. That could take a little bit longer than 2 months. So it's hard to quote material delivery times right now. I would say the bulk of it could be done in 2 months, and then we might be waiting a month or so for some straggling materials to make their way here. Is my best guess right now.
Okay. I assume then a final lien waiver wouldn't be issued until the museum's complete as well.
That's probably the easiest way of doing it, given the fact that it's gonna be a relatively small amount of time. And to be honest with you, it's not uncommon to have invoices, coming through 2-3 months after the fact, and we really like to make sure we capture all of those, otherwise it's, just costs we've got to pay for out of our pocket. So we like to afford people as much time and then start making phone calls. And surprisingly, some people aren't really good about getting their money, so we'll have to coax them along a little bit. But yeah, I could see us kind of wrapping things up middle of the summer, accounting-wise. I think is probably a realistic goal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, let me ask you about the flooring in the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, the shooting area, where the balls, because you're going to build slanted floor. So the
Well, so the way, in the design meetings, it was decided that the flooring, all they wanted from us was a concrete floor. The flooring itself is part of, Mr. Madursky and Nations Group or whomever's responsibility going forward. So they specifically asked us to remove flooring from any pricing. So that is by them. And as far as the ramped up, ball return area, that is all part of the museum design, fixture, assembly, scope of work.
So once you get the walls hung, and then you're out of it.
Unless you want me to do more. But currently, that's the plan, is they specifically asked for no flooring, that they would design that and procure those services as part of the museum build-out.
So if I can, Mr. President, who does the install, Brian?
I don't know.
Was that not part of your contract?
Originally, we were putting hardwood floor in, and it's probably been a year ago, they removed that via deduct change order. So we, along with the slab, and then we put the slab back in without any flooring. Because originally the slab was going to be depressed a couple inches to account for a true hardwood type sports court. But then the decision was made to raise the slab up, and I'm not sure what kind of flooring will go in there.
The reason for that was if something would happen to that museum, 10 or 15 years from now, and it leaves, and then we have a meeting room with a floor like this. So I said, build the floor out of wood. Have a flat slab and build it out of wood. You and I talked about that.
Sure.
So Madursky's changed all that. I mean, not the slab necessarily, but.
They, for whatever reason, they just asked that no flooring be in there, and they would take care of the design and procurement of that whenever the time comes. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's as much as I know.
All right.
I got a couple things real quick. Brian, if you don't mind, and Mark and Tyler and Steve are okay with it, can we grab a picture of you
Love
before
to.
you leave?
As long as they're willing
I'd
to.
like to work with Vittoria maybe and expand on that a little bit, because I think a huge taxpayer-funded project like this, to have all the locals involved, is something to really talk about and highlight, so
Yeah.
maybe we can do that. And second, Brian, you make our job really easy as county commissioner and as the CIB board. The way you explain things and do things is just tremendous, so I applaud you on that too.
Well, thank you.
And then also, Tyler Claypool yesterday, when it came to the jail presentation, he did a fantastic job. I think you worked with him a little bit, so thank you for that as well.
You're welcome.
That's it. Any other questions?
I'm gonna miss doing this. They usually aren't, everybody's usually not this nice, so this is good. But thank you.
Thank you. Still under old business, item number 5.2, an update on the convention center management with our manager, Tennille, and her crew.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I wanted to introduce you to the newest member of our team. This is Lucy Utterback.
Hi.
She is our event manager, so I'll give her just a moment to kind of tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm a Terre Haute local as well. I graduated at Terre Haute North and then went to ISU for my undergrad and my master's. And then before accepting this position, I was at the Sycamore Winery in Ohio building as their event coordinator. So I'm super excited to join this team. We got a lot of great things planned, and I'm excited to meet you all. So, thanks.
Thank you. So I put a report up there for each of you, and I won't go through every little thing on it, but just to I'll just highlight some of the things in each section. I'm just starting off with grand opening. So we're having we have a committee that we have established, and we're going to start pulling those meetings a little bit closer together as we're planning. Our public opening is going to be Saturday, April 9th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is open to the public. The chamber will work with us on the ribbon cutting, but it will have more of a ceremonial type ribbon cutting. We'll have some of our public officials, making welcomes and announcements. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. The national anthem is going to be performed by a local artist, Abby Scott. We will also have a small business expo that will feature, what we can do in our ballroom. The convention center isn't just for banquets and small meetings. We can do small consumer shows and trade shows and meetings with trade shows. So we want to be able to show off what we can do in the facility. So we'll have a small business expo that we will sell booth space for. What that does is it ensures that whoever reserves a space, they show up for the event, so we don't have empty booths and there's only 30 spots. So you do get a lot of exclusivity with that. We'll do food sampling, and then we'll have lots of tours. We do have a appointment, or we've applied for a permit to do activities out in front of the convention center. We've been working with the Children's Museum. They'll be helping us activate the streets, and so we've got a long list of ideas of things that we'd like to do outside, with the community, so families can come out and bring their kids. We will also host a grand opening, kind of a celebration welcome gala. That'll be Saturday the 23rd. This will be a ticketed event. The hours are going to be from 6 to 9 p.m., and this will consist of a formal plated dinner, entertainment, and dancing. We've talked about some other ideas to go with that, too. We'll have more details coming on that, and then we'll push those ticket sales out probably not next week, but the week following that. But as we have more progress on these items, we'll keep you updated on that. From an operations standpoint, our Director of Operations recently went to Owensboro Convention Center, where he trained with the Director of Ops there. He did a lot of room sets with their team, learned how to do labor allocations, inventory and supplies, went through a lot of checklists that they use in our facility. A lot of our facilities, we do a lot of things the same way, but we gear things towards what works in each facility, what fits our building. So we're really getting a lot of information from different buildings and trying to figure out what's going to fit our building here. We're currently interviewing for a maintenance technician and operations manager's position. And he's been meeting with a lot of vendors as far as, cleaning products, pest control, things like that. So just really, really busy trying to go through all of the service agreements that need to be turned over to the facility and going through those contracts and trying to renegotiate, what we need according to our legal team's requirements. From finance and HR, we're currently configuring our Sage accounting software, trying to get all of our codes to match up to our departments that fit all of our facilities. All of our check runs are being done in-house now. Our payroll processing is going to start on February 28th. So all of that will start coming directly out of our system. From a staffing standpoint, we're getting ready to start hiring, lots of our part-time staff. So I just kind of want to run through the positions that we do have available. When it comes to the facility staff, when it comes to part-time positions, we'll have different positions that will be different hours. We'll have morning events, afternoon events, evening events, weekend events. We really hope that we'll be able to pull a lot of college students that can work different hours. So it means bringing on a lot of staff, but they work different hours. So we might have teams that work with some people certain days, and then it'd be different teams at different hours of the day. But currently what we have open is we have our executive chef position, which we are interviewing. We have a candidate right now that we're interviewing and in final stages of that. Our event manager position was recently closed. That's Lucy. We did slate for 2 event manager positions. However, that second position won't come on until we feel that we have enough events to really dictate that position be filled. We're interviewing for a part-time maintenance technician. We're in the final interview stage with a couple candidates on that position. We have a full-time operations manager, which we're in the final interviews. Same with our banquet manager. We are in our final interviews. However, we are still taking some applications. I think we've just recently had a bunch more applications come in, so we want to make sure that we're taking a look at those. We're looking for our marketing administrative assistant. This person is really going to have a marketing focus, but be able to also assist in other areas of the facility administratively. And we've got a couple really good candidates that we're working with for that. Part-time line cooks, kitchen stewards, banquet servers, operations, setup, and housekeeping. These are all our part-time positions that really the hours will just be determined based on events. There might be weeks that we have fewer events, so we have fewer needs, or we might have weeks where we have a lot of staff that's in the building, so it's really just trying to figure out, how many in each department that we'll need, and then as events add to our booking calendar, then we will start adding more staff. So we have a lot of positions that are open on the part-time front. Food and beverage. Our director of food and beverage recently went to Owensboro, Kentucky as well. She spent 4 days there to train with their staff. She worked with their director of food and beverage, with their chef, with their event management team, with their banquet servers and their captains to really understand how we service events. They actually had 4 different events taking place at the same time. So she really got a wide gamut of different types of events. They had overnight flips, so we went from a banquet to a graduation to something else the next day. So really just was able to experience quite a bit while she was there. Our liquor license hearing is set on February 28th at 1 p.m. We do have our permit posted in the window. It's been posted for about a month. As soon as I got that last board meeting, we went out there and put it up. I have submitted the Pepsi and Coca-Cola sponsorships to the CIB, so I kind of look to you guys to give me your input as to which direction you'd like to go, or if you would like me to make a decision on that, I'm happy to do that as well. We have been meeting with alcohol distributors and our food purveyors. We do have a national contract with US Foods where we do get preferred pricing. However, we're working with B&B Foods. There's a lot of products that we'll buy from them as well locally. And then we're also working with Cameron Farms trying to set up, a program with them for fresh local beef and chicken and eggs. So we're trying to find as much that we can locally to go back into the community and into here in Indiana. Myself, Lucy, and our Director of Food and Beverage are set up for the Serve Safe Food Manager certification in March. We were actually going to be doing that in February, but then the class was canceled because of the snow, so we'll be doing that on March 2nd. And then all of our banquet servers that we do hire will have to have their food handlers permits as well, so we'll work with them on obtaining those. We've been meeting with a lot of vendors. Our food and beverage director has been consumed this past month really with going through a lot of the small wares items, lots of vendors, lots of quotes, lots of pricing items out, trying to get the best things. We did invite the board over to choose a dinnerware set. We came up with 5 different dish settings that we really liked that fit in we looked at a good, better, best range, and we went into the better range so that we could still keep the cost down but looking at a really large supply of dishes for the facility, and what was chosen was a really beautiful set through Rack Porcelain. It's called Soul, has a lifetime warranty on chips, so anytime we get little chips and scratches on the plates, we just call our rep and they send us more. So we're really happy about what was chosen. It's a really beautiful set. We've got 3 pages of marketing items on here. I won't go through everything, but if you were watching the Super Bowl locally, you would have seen a 15-second ad after the Super Bowl. Channel 2 worked with us on that. They came out, produced the video, put it together. It was a really good spot. We had our director of sales had lots of calls after that ad. She had lots of people texting her and saying, "Hey, I just saw your ad." So that was really exciting to see, folks locally seeing that. We do have a full-page ad in the bridal edition for the Terre Haute Living magazine. Tribune Star, we had 22,000 flyers that went out in 2 separate Wednesday paper issues. Oh, good, you got one. So those have been hitting the streets, and we're starting to get calls from that. And when you get to the revenue in the back, you'll see where we've kind of really had a nice little spike in our funnel. But we do have some radio ads that are running right now. We've got 3 weeks of ads on 102.7, 97.9, and 99.9. Our website is up, so if you go to terrehotecc.com, you'll see our new website is up. Our JL has been working diligently to get that up. We wanted to make sure we had it up for the Super Bowl ad. And so it looks really nice. So we're quite pleased, and they'll continue to work on it with us, but it looks nice. So if you have time to go to that, please do. And then we have our billboard that was donated by the CVB on I-70. So that's westbound up in Plainfield. So I passed it on the highway. I saw it, actually my husband saw it. He's like, "There's your billboard." It was really exciting to see that. So it's really nice, and we've had a few calls from the billboard too.
Let me interrupt before we flip the page on advertising. I didn't see anything from WTHI. I just saw a WTWO proposal.
So with the sponsorship proposal for Channel 2, they approached us and wanted to talk about sponsorship. So we started that process with them quite a while back. So it wasn't an RFP, it was them coming to us and saying, "Hey, here's what we want to do." We put together, here's what we think we can do, gave them a proposal, and then they came back and said, "Here's what we can do." So we've kind of been negotiating that back and forth.
Okay. I guess I would like to see WTHI included, or at least have them submit something to you if they're interested in the business, because it's my understanding they've got a 4-to-1 viewership over WTWO, so I would like to see something from WTHI if
Okay.
they are interested in the business.
Yeah, we can issue them the same proposal and see, if they would be interested in doing the same thing. I mean, it would come down to one or the other. I just want to be careful about ruining the relationship that we're establishing with both stations too. Channel 2 has committed to being a sponsor for the grand opening also, so they do have a part commitment that they've made on one, because we issued 2 separate proposals, one for the grand opening and then one for Wi-Fi sponsorship. And so I do want to be very careful about the relationship with working with everyone, and I don't want to pit anyone against each other also. But yeah, I'll certainly reach out to them both and talk through the process with them both. The next page really just talks about digital initiatives. Digital is a lot easier to track than it is print. We can see, what's being read and that, so we will do a lot of digital through the year. So this just really kind of talks about where we have digital ads out there. We'll always do Facebook, retargeting ads and things like that, but this just kind of pinpoints some of those. As our team has really started to get their hands around things, Pam, our director of sales, is becoming more involved in some of the downtown organizations. So she's now on the Terre Haute Advisory Board with the Chamber, and she's joined the Leadership Connect as well. Her and Nate are now both members of Meeting Professionals International. This is MPI. This is the largest organization of meeting planners in the hospitality industry. So they'll be involved in the Indiana chapter, doing local meetings with them and the networking sessions. And then you can see at the bottom, I've got the sponsorship and partnership development that we've been working on with WTWO Channel 2 on there. Site tours, we've had a lot of site tours this past month. This just goes through, a lot of the organizations that they've done tours with. And it speaks to a little bit of our booking promotions. And we just threw in here some of the articles that we get Google alerts when we're in the news, and we can't fit everything on here, but, the convention center has covered a lot. So I think that the media here has done a really great job of picking up, the stories, the things that have been booked, the progress on the facility, and I think that certainly helps. Looking at our numbers, so if we look at 2022, definite contracts, we have 6 definite events, which bring 135 hotel rooms. This totals about $50,000 in gross revenue. We have 6 contracts out right now that are just waiting to be signed. And then we have 27 tentative proposals that are out. So these are just organizations that we're working with on, they're talking to us about holding an event. We've given them an official proposal, and it's just going back and forth until we can get to that contract stage. Looking at 2023, we have 2 definite contracts that bring about 180 rooms and about $45,000 in gross revenue. And then we've got 8 tentative proposals. And then in 2024, we have 1 event that has a contract out on it right now. So looking at our total funnel from 22 through 24, we've got $435,000 worth of business that's in the funnel. Now, some of that tentative might drop off, but more tentative will come back too. Just some of the key events that we can mention are the Swope Museum's 80th anniversary dinner, which will be May 1st. We will do a self-produced Mother's Day brunch May 8th, so that'll be something that the Convention Center will host. We will we'll come up with a menu for it. We'll push ticket sales for that. It's something that it's very easy for us to do in-house and fill some space. We have the Air Race Classics June 26th. This is more of a banquet and meeting. We have the Beekeepers of Indiana that will be here in October of 22, and then the Firefighters Union of Indiana will be here in May of 23. Any questions?
I love the Mother's Day brunch idea. Everyone's always looking for a special place to take their mother. I think that's a great idea, and you probably should pencil in Father's Day too.
We've talked about that, and I think it would be fun to do something Father's Day, and we can gear it towards the guys and kind of think about what do the guys want to do. We can have sports playing on TVs or something too. Yeah. Beer. We'll have beer. And with the Mother's Day brunch, we're talking about, what we'd like to do is have time slots so that we can have a certain amount of folks sign up for 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, so that way we can control how many folks are coming and going and know how many to seat for, not knowing how many to expect in a first year. It gives us the ability to control our food so that we know how much needs to be prepared at a certain time so that we're not having to hold it too long.
I really like it. Makes the building accessible and a great time for you guys to show off.
Yeah, thank you.
If I could build on that just a little bit, are there tours with that as well?
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a great idea, that you have people in the building and show
Yeah,
'em.
so this will be, it'll basically be an all-staff encompassed event, so maintenance or housekeeping, they'll be working the event. So this will be something where we all work the event. We'll do tours, we can, the building will be open, so folks can walk around. We'll have room sets so people can see, what you can do in the different parts of the building. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's an opportunity for us to show off and showcase the building, yes.
Tennille, if I can real quick, I believe Coca-Cola was a little bit more than Pepsi. Is that right, or was it a lot more?
Pepsi had, when it came to the advertising, Pepsi had more value on the proposal. Coke was offering a little bit more financially in actual sponsorship dollars. So it's really kind of looking at where the value lies. Pepsi also had a rebate program as well. So the more we buy, the more we get back at the end of the year.
And they're vested in Terre Haute. They're here, where Coke comes out of Indianapolis.
Correct.
No offense. But frankly, I like Coke myself better than Pepsi, but you have to go where the value is, and I agree that Pepsi,
I will just say Terre Haute has a rich history, which with Coca-Cola. wonder if there's room for negotiations there with Coke, because, you know, they go down, you go a block away from the convention center and you get your picture taken with the biggest Coca-Cola sign in Indiana almost. So I wonder if can you kind of play that and see if, you know, there is some negotiations there?
Yeah, I mean, we can always go back and ask for more or ask to make modifications in that. For me, when I look at the value to value, the advertising value that Pepsi had included in their proposal, there's a good value there. And so I think if Coke wants to match that value, it really needs to be looking at the advertising value too. So I don't know if you agree with that,
No,
but
yeah,
I think.
do. I mean, absolutely, if it's gonna save money and we get more money in the end, Pepsi's the way to go, but I would think Coca-Cola would be willing to do something, just so they could continue to stay local in Terre Haute, Indiana.
I totally agree with Chris. If they could take one more pass at it, just to
Absolutely.
see if they can offer a little bit more up, because Coca-Cola does absolutely resonate here.
And neither one of these two organizations has seen each other's proposals, so they don't know what's in it. So what I would do is go back to Coke and let them know that, hey, Pepsi had a decent amount of advertising value in there. What can you offer? Or if you would prefer me ask for a dollar amount, I can ask for a dollar amount in advertising or something that would equate, whether it's product or discounts that would equate to the same value.
Well, that was another thing. Pepsi give you product, and Coke had none. Is that correct?
I didn't bring my sheet with me. I think they both committed to doing like a certain amount of products, because we always ask for a certain amount of charitable products. So if we have let's say we have a kids event or like a public opening or something where, you know, we ask, can you donate some product for that rather than us having to purchase it from them? So we always ask it for a certain amount. And I think they both came back with pretty much a very similar quantity. I believe Pepsi came back with offering that same quantity or very similar quantity, plus they were also going to donate beverages for the public opening too. So I think that was an extra add on that. And that was after their CEO had been in town and toured the building and stopped in and said, hey, I'm really excited. I'm going to add some more stuff. So it wasn't actually in the proposal, because he came out and told us specifically, hey, I'm going to add all these things.
Well, yeah, just so we're clear, take the best proposal. I mean, we're using taxpayer money, then we want the absolute best deal, but
I'll go back to Coke and ask them if there's any way they can elevate their bid a little bit, and then I'll bring that back to you. How about that? Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
The next item is an update on the project budget with Jason Simler of Baker Tilly. Morning, Jason.
Morning. You should have in front of you an updated budget to actual expense. Not much has changed from the adjusted budget or the current contract cost. I did want to point out that at the very bottom of the page, I did add under the unbudgeted additional project cost from what was approved at the last meeting, the speakers and the ADA powered door operator. I did put those two line items under the, again, unbudgeted additional project costs. So that brings that total amount to $277,000. So the total project cost, kind of the construction that was approved when the bonds were issued, plus these additional costs add up to $35,018,000. You can see the comparison between the budget, the construction budget, and the kind of current contract cost. The unallocated expenses is still about $149,000. As you've been hearing the last, few weeks, last couple of months, we've been talking more about, the project coming close to an end, starting to looking at the furniture and fixtures. So I'm going to be working with the Nations Group inspector to try to probably fine-tune some of these line items as now that they're starting to get, bids and starting to incur some of these expenses. So I wouldn't be surprised if next month you see some more changes on the current contract costs and kind of the over-under budget. But right now, again, we're about $150,000 of unallocated expenses. So net that with the additional $277,000 of additional costs that you've already agreed to, it's only about $127,000 of additional costs that we're anticipating that you'd be paid from with food and beverage on hand. And in the far right side, you can see that of the total construction cost budget, about $4.9 million has yet to be spent. If you add in the $277,000 of additional costs that's been approved, about $5.2 million has yet to be spent. And these all flow through. I know I also send you the kind of monthly cash flow schedule. All these expenses that have not been, or kind of budgeted but haven't been spent yet, flow through to that cash flow schedule. So everything that you see here has been accounted for in its projections.
I know this isn't necessarily a question for you, Jason, but I know you've been working with Spectra on budgeting out after July, once the contract takes place. Any idea when we might know some of those numbers? I know I assume close.
Yeah, I know, and that cash flow schedule, we were only kind of showing through kind of pre-operating costs, but kind of working with Spectra, we did kind of go out through to July, and I know they're kind of working on best case scenario for the rest of the year, trying to look at the events that are coming down the pipeline and looking at those expenses. And I think that's something we're going to continue to work on because we do want to kind of have this for the whole year budgeted out as soon as possible. And I would say that, they've been great to work with, and, I've asked them to be kind of conservative on these costs, kind of as far as revenues, it kind of seem low estimates, and on the expenses, estimate high, because a lot of those expenses are going to be based upon the number of events they have. So we're hoping that even through the July, the numbers that we're showing are on the high side.
And then in January, just confirming then the bond payment was made.
Yes. Yes. And then your next bond payment won't be due till July. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Jason. All right, an update on equipment purchases and project closeout with John Rollins of the Nations Group. Morning, John.
Morning. Yes, so as Brian said, the parking garage equipment is expected to deliver, excuse me, and install next week. The furniture and remaining building signage will also then deliver the following week, that being February 28th, and installation and assembly of that furniture and the building signage will take part throughout that week. And then our building operations, we've been working with Spectra on the procurement of that and expect delivery of all that equipment to be throughout March.
John, I think I asked you this question before, maybe I asked Brian. Does the furniture already come put together, or?
Most of it does, yes. If it doesn't, we have really, that would only come from that commercial office environments, one of the invoices you had seen before. And they have a crew that will install and assemble any furniture if it's needed.
Do you have all of the furniture in hand, or are we still waiting?
Waiting for it to be delivered. None of it's been arrived yet. We'll be arriving to the site at February 28th, so 2 weeks from now.
Any thoughts on delays?
No, we've been talking about, they were able to move it up earlier. We wanted to have everything wrapped up in the convention center before it was delivered. So we've been working with them on a schedule, so nothing's been delayed there.
Okay.
John, do you know, I asked Brian, the tables there for the pre-function area, are they bought?
Yeah, they're not high tops though, they're lower tables,
Okay.
next to like a club chair. But there is some furniture out in that pre-function area.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope, we're good.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a new item added this week under old business, an update on the Larry Bird Museum with Board Member Terry Conley.
Thank you. Just to let the board know that there is a meeting taking place every 2 weeks that includes Garmong, the Hilferty Group, Mark Madursky also involved on that, and I've joined in on that call. Spectra, Tennille, pretty much everyone's been involved on those calls. As Brian mentioned, they did finalize all of the, pretty much the rough ends, and they have all the plans finished there. So as far as this group goes, we do have a subcommittee. We did meet on February 10th. Myself, Steve Witt, the mayor, Shelley, Mark, and we just had a few items that we discussed just to let everyone know. There was some discussion and concerns over whether or not we want to keep the museum, the responsibility of a museum, a separate museum board, or if it would consist of CIB members managing that, with responsibilities including policymaking, security, admissions, photography, maintenance, cleaning, event coordination with Spectra. It was the committee's opinion to have a newly formed 501c3. And with that, a board that would oversee that 501c3. So the next step then would be having those organizational documents prepared, and that way some of the concerns that we have with the museum obviously is copyright laws and requirements. The NBA has theirs, the Celtics has theirs. There's a lot that you have to take into consideration, and there will be loan agreements that will need to be in place for the collection items. So with that, having that separate 501c3 set up, and then obviously having all of those legal documents prepared, that needs to happen fairly quickly. And so that's where the committee is concentrating its efforts. There was some discussion over signage for the museum. We do have signage for the convention center. There's not been any definite signage or budgeted for the museum itself, which the museum itself will not necessarily be open only when the convention center is open. If there are not events, we do want at times to have the museum open. So with that, some of that signage, there was, I don't know, John, I think you made the comment about a possible motion graphic image through all the front windows, as well as possibly using some of the signage that we do have with the convention center, the digital signage there. We have asked Hilferty to provide us an anticipated timeline for the construction. Obviously, that's going to also depend on when Garmong can finish the shell portion. We do not have that yet. And then during construction, we will have a temporary scrim or window covering put up just to protect, obviously, the public from seeing all of the construction going on inside. And we are finalizing that image. And our next meeting will be on March 10th. Any
Mr.
questions?
President, can I add one item? So I did want to clarify for the committee that the maintenance, cleaning, security of the museum area is included in Spectra's contract. So just want to be sure, and in the fees that you're paying them already. So just wanted to be sure you didn't double bill that.
Right, and so there will need to be agreements, obviously, between the 501c3 and Spectra to, since they will be, schedules will need to be worked together, obviously, as Tennille's having and scheduling events that will also be at the museum, but there will have to be.
And then if I can ask, how will the 501c3 be funded?
Well, that would have to be either through, those are things, though, that's what's the committee's going to have to work through. With whether or not there's a lease agreement between the CIB and the 501c3 for usage of the facility, as well as admission. There's fundraising efforts. That's all things that really hasn't been discussed that needs to be figured out.
If I may jump in here. The museum started out as simply an attraction for the convention center. Here's Larry's shoes. Here's his jersey. And it was all known to be just a loan to the CIB. Never that the CIB would own any of it, because we always knew at some point in time, either Larry or his daughter would want the stuff back, or Greg. If you turn it into a public entity, then you lose the protection of the government when it comes to, number one, liability. Our government liability is capped at I think it's $750,000 per occurrence. If somebody falls in there, gets hurt, falls into one of the glass displays and gets cut real bad, whatever. But if you go public, then the sky's the limit. They can sue you for $10 million. Right now, it would be under the government insurance, the county insurance. We get a pretty big cut in price because there's so many dollars going into the till for each individual.
So the 501c3 would not own the property. That would still be the CIB, which the insurance would still cover any liability issues, correct?
There's a writer on the policy, yeah, they'll do that.
Correct. So
Yeah.
the 501c3 wouldn't own the building.
What's the purpose of the 501c3 then?
It would mostly be for policymaking and to have those other responsibilities that goes along with having a museum, making sure.
But we're not going to have artifacts that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars like the Swope has. We won't get any death bequeaths that go into the till.
Probably not, no. No. This is Larry's items, correct? These are all of his. And so some of that decision came from him on how he envisioned. He wants all of the items to be located at the museum, his items, his motorcycle, all kinds of items that he would like there. So considering that the museum is mostly his items, that had some of the, and with the succession, obviously, that his daughter can also be involved in this museum. So having a board set up and an entity set up that she can be involved in as well.
How does Greg feel about that?
He was in agreement.
Well, he told me that he always envisioned the CIB to operate the museum.
I just had breakfast with him 2 weeks ago, and he also mentioned he preferred that a separate 501c3 be set up for that.
Well, then you and I are going to have to get in a room with him, because a week ago, he told me just the opposite, that he felt that the CIB would pay all the bills, be responsible for the stuff. So we'll work that out with him, okay?
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Terry?
Can I add one more just thought?
Absolutely.
So there may be, you all have to decide which direction to go on this, but you could, if you didn't want to set up a whole separate entity, I mean, there could be an advisory board, or if part of the concern is for involvement from the community without, the expense and kind of the bureaucracy of having a separate entity. It's just a thought, so as you're considering options.
I'm just curious as to if the museum is it not intentional to be open to the public outside of the convention center? I guess that's what's really driving the decision-making in this. I mean, if it's tied strictly to the convention center, then I would agree with that. But if it's going to be open on weekends outside of events, then, who's going to oversee, who's going to staff it?
That's Spectra's responsibility, so.
Okay.
But you talked at one point about guides, that kind of thing. That's not anticipated in their contract, but just thoughts. You guys have a lot to do on that.
There is a lot of decisions to be made.
I think there's a lot more further discussion on this, and thank you, Terry, for stepping up and taking the bull by the horns and getting this project moving.
Okay, thank you, yeah. It needs to progress. We need to have the loan agreements in place before, and all the copyright decisions, knowing exactly where we stand before Hilferty can even really start doing what we've asked them to do.
So just one more item to keep in mind. So we've tried diligently but been unable to get the contact information for Larry's agent. Although we've had a sliver of communication from them that apparently there's no problem using Larry's facial image, like on the signage, that kind of thing. But if it's got a uniform in it, the NBA gets involved.
So Jill, Larry's attorney, is going through several of the memorabilia that they have and what those rights are that they already have from the Celtics and from the NBA.
Great.
So, no, she is doing the work on that, as well as digital media, because there will be some digital media in the museum. So, yes, she is working on that. We just don't have anything in writing, and I feel very strongly that for us to even call it a Larry Bird Museum, we need Larry's consent. And so those are the things that the committee needs to get the ball rolling on. And so.
And did I understand you correctly, you're going to charge an admission?
If we decide to have an event where there would be admissions, that's something that, again, is that something that the CIB is going to control, or would we want a board that oversees the museum to handle?
Okay. Any questions? Good. Thank you. Update on legal matters, Brian Bosma.
Mr. President, members of the CIB, as Tennille mentioned, the alcoholic beverage permit for the convention center, there'll be a hearing on that on February 28th, 1 p.m. in the Commissioners' Chamber is where they hold their meetings. Mr. Kowalski of our firm, who was a former hearing officer for the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, will be in attendance for that, along with Tennille and any other folks that want to be there. So I don't believe members have to be there, but if somebody wants to be, they certainly can be. I think, John, we maybe asked the president to be present in case there were some questions on that. We're working through, I guess I'll brief you on a couple of items here rather than do it in new business. So you have two resolutions before you. We've been working with both Nations Group, John, and Spectra on equipment procurement. So you have a special, and it's weird. This isn't like government buying, 1,000 pencils or putting in specifications for a copying machine. The dinnerware is very specific by manufacturer with specific warranties, guarantees of availability in the future for replacement, And you can't just give them a spec and have them give you a quote back. A lot of the reps have been told by Tennille, say, get on our website and fill out your, load it into the cart and we'll see. So you have a special procurement resolution under that is exempt from the normal quotation process that allows, if you believe there has been competition as is reasonably practicable, to make a procurement. Technically, we don't really have to go through that process because I don't think any of the lines of equipment were more than 50,000 individually, although perhaps one of them was. But collectively, is glassware a separate line from plates and a separate line from pots that are in the kitchen? Who knows? So anyway, so to do belts and suspenders, you have a special procurement resolution before you. Tennille and her team have done what I would characterize as exhaustive research on pricing and actually got some discounts and buy one, get one on the selected manufacturers. So if you're inclined to move forward with that today, I know Tennille would appreciate that, so that as dinnerware for the grand opening. The first item on new business is the purchasing policy. This has been long in the works because there's not really an example of this someplace. So we put together one that is similar to some of the items that the Association of Cities and Towns put together. So we made classifications of, and this is the policy that your purchasing agent, which is appointed in the policy as Spectra for the convention center. These are the policies they will have to follow. So in short, if there's an emergency, they can do whatever they need to. There is a provision in there that they attempt to call a member of and get approval from a member of the executive committee, but if it's a true issue, including prevention of a scheduled event, they can proceed with purchases and report back. The policy says services, if it's going to be more than a year, the board would ask that they do an RFP process and try to go local if possible. If it's not more than a year contract, they can procure however they would like for services. And this is air conditioning repair, cleaning if it's not their staff, whatever those services might be. For the procurement of equipment, which I understand is not going to be, that includes supplies, equipment, any of those goods. It includes food. If it's less than $10,000 in a single event, they can do so. I added in response to a comment made by Ms. Morris, I added that they would use in the $10,000 and under category competition to the extent practicable. If it's between 10 and 25,000, they are instructed to attempt to get 3 quotes. They can get them over the phone. Doesn't have to be a formal specification process. 25 to 50. If there's a procurement, which I understand now is going to be unlikely other than the startup items, they can do so by getting 3 quotes and giving 72 hours to get responses back to give time for people to respond. And then the last category was $50,000 and up. This is the only one that's covered by statute. If you buy equipment or supplies between $50,000 and $150,000, there's a statutory process that's set forth in the purchasing policy, and that is to draft specifications. It could be a detailed description. It doesn't have to be, 1.2 inches here, 3.8 inches there, but a description of what you want. Give it to, provide that description to 3 vendors known to be, to deal in that line of supplies or equipment. Give them 7 days to respond. Have a formal opening in a public forum, which your purchasing agent can do, and then for those purchases, those are to be submitted to the board for approval. So there were a couple of comments that were made by Ms. Morris and Ms. Conley, and I'll just address those real quick because I'm sure they'd like to talk about them. So Emily suggested moving the $10,000 down to $2,500. Instead of doing that for just the draft, and we can change all this today, and you can approve it, and we'll provide a revised draft if the board wants to do that. In dealing with Spectra, talking with Spectra, I mean, they hope there's an event for which they have to buy $2,500 worth of food. I mean, it could happen. They could have 2 of them in a weekend. So giving them too many requirements for that type of purchase might be difficult for them to comply with, and you have to have some trust also with your manager, and they're going to be reporting back to you monthly, and then there's an annual audit as well. The second suggestion was from Terry, and that was to combine the 25 and 50 to 50 and 150. And I didn't want to do that, but I will if it's your direction, because the 50 to 150 is a statutory process. You have to have a public opening. You have to give vendors 7 days to respond, and you have to create a register of proposals and your procedures for audit by State Board of Accounts. So I didn't want to drag that down into the 25 to 50, and you can't change it for the 50 to 150.
Yeah, I wanted to get rid of the $25,000 step. I just wanted to simplify and eliminate one of the, either
Okay.
up to the 10 to the 50, as opposed to, you have the item 3 where it goes from 25 to 50, where you start adding 72-hour responses
Okay,
in there.
I'm fine with
that's-
that.
That's the only
That
thing
I
I was going to
misunderstood your
eliminate.
comment on that. Okay, we can certainly do that. So that would simplify the process for purchases between 10 and 50. So they could just get phone quotes. They don't have to wait 72 hours, that type of thing. I'm great with that. I thought you wanted to put 25 up with the 50 to 150.
I just wanted to simplify and if we could take out one of the steps
Okay,
where
if
you
that's,
had
when we get
2
there, if that's what
instead
the
of
board would like to do,
several.
that's easily done. And then the second suggestion that Terry made was to reduce, we had in there, and again, these are arbitrary limits. You know, we just had to pick something to get in front of the board so the board could look at it and say, yeah, yes or no. On the capitalized expenditures. And so capitalized expenditure would be something like, it's not a repair, it's not a piece of equipment, it's like replacing an entire air conditioner, or I don't know, in the kitchen, something big. She suggested, and we said no real requirements up to 25,000. She suggested that be 10,000, which I think is a very reasonable limit, because 25,000 was pulled out of thin air anyway. So, and again, we've confirmed with Spectra that there are not many circumstances where they're going to be making a $10,000 capital equipment purchase. And in the event it was an emergency, the whole air conditioning system goes down on in July before an event. There is a provision in that policy for emergencies, which they can follow. So could have explained all that during new business, but those are the legal items that are before you today. See, I had one other I was going to mention. We're still waiting for Spectra to reply to the management contract amendment from their corporate legal. Well, we haven't bugged Tennille or Dave Anderson about that yet, but we'll get that in place. The item that is under discussion is precisely what report they will be submitting to the Finance Committee on a monthly basis, where they say, we anticipate spending this much. Here's what we spent previously. This is what's necessary to get to your $450,000 minimum deposit in the operating account. So those discussions are taking place. Chris is involved in those as the chairman of finance, and we hope to have a formal recommendation back to the board next month. And if we don't, we'll at least have an informal recommendation to the board so that you are comfortable with the report that they are submitting every month. Happy to answer any questions.
I guess maybe I would ask for $5,000 to cap that on phase 1, and for for phase two, start at $5,001 and move up to $50,000. It is an arduous process, and if it becomes too much for the board, we can change the resolution in
Sure.
the future. However, I think getting pricing right now is of the utmost importance on everything, and reviewing with cost fluctuations out there and things changing day to day. I would just feel better about looking at any expenditures immediately that are going to occur a little sooner than $10,000.
So the two recommendations are to, and we can't do it yet, Mr. Chairman, we do it in new business once you get this, this resolution on the table. So I understand fully, so it would be $5,000 and under, they just purchase, don't have to go through any procedures. I get a feeling Tennille's kind of tight with $1, so should probably make calls anyway. And then a second category that's above 5,000 and to 50,000, and going through the procedures, the limited procedures requiring them to get 3 quotes. No 72 hours. Then we eliminate the 25 to 50, which requires a 72-hour wait, all of which I think are good suggestions. So what we'll do when you're ready to move to new business and do that, you'll move the resolution second, and then amend in accordance with what we just said, and then we will magically produce a new policy attached to the signed resolution in accordance with your desires.
I would like Tennille's opinion on that. If, not knowing really or seeing any budgeted items, if you feel 5,000, I know and I have to give you credit for what you've done so far as managing a lot of the expenses. So please note that this isn't anything as far as what you've done to date. You've proven that you watch.
So I do watch the numbers. I'm very frugal. I guess my only concern would be when it comes to ordering food and beverage. And so I don't know if there's an exclusion that we could do, towards food and beverage. Equipment, supplies, things like that, we should never have orders that are going to exceed that amount. We'll have like monthly orders to keep up with certain things, but let's just say we have a convention that has $100,000 worth of food. That's not what our cost is on the food. But if you figure, if we're going to have a food event that's $60,000 to $100,000, we're going to be spending more than $5,000 in food and liquor orders and that for one event. We typically don't place that order with whether it's U.S. Foods or B&B Foods, and we might have multiple orders coming from different places. We usually will place that order about 10 days out from that event, but it's going to be billed on one invoice too. And sometimes those orders are we might have a few events that are all on one order also. And so I guess I just need to understand how to manage that, because that might be hard if I need to get permission 10 days out to, okay, now I've got a food order that's $7,000, or our food bill is going to be, how would I manage that, or, to get permission to do that, because we would be at a time constraint for a lot of events. And right now, I don't see that as being an issue because we're just starting up. But as we get going, those orders should grow as we start doing those larger banquets.
So food and beverage is
I would say
the
food
big
and beverage,
concern.
it would be the only concern for me.
And if it's the board's desire to do so, we could easily put a paragraph in here that excludes purchases of food and beverages from the policy.
When it comes to anything like capital, we would always bring that to you anyway. We're not going to make any large purchases without coming to you and saying, okay, this is what we would consider capital. We would put that in a capital plan that you guys would review, and then you could say, yes, I think this is a feasible one. No, this can wait 2 years, or this can wait a year, or, we would have those plans well in advance, and then we would look towards those plans as months or years go by. We will establish a capital plan that shows, like life of carpet If our carpet is good for 10 years, what do we think that replacement's going to be in 10 years? A capital plan for the air conditioner. So we'll have all of those mechanical items will be included in that plan along with the maintenance schedule. And at what point do we think we will start to have to replace those things so that we can budget in the future?
I think that's acceptable, and as we are passing those costs off to the consumer anyway, so I think that that's
Okay,
an acceptable exclusion.
perfect. Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Bosman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before we get to the new business, one other item would be under old business, RGL Solutions.
Well, good morning. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Bosma, for accommodating me. What you have in front of you is a letter that the committee who is planning the convention center opening has drafted. So as Tennille kind of went through today, we have our public grand opening scheduled for April 9th, and then that ticketed event on April 23rd. So the committee had the suggestion to have a letter that would go along with some of our marketing and PR materials that comes from the CIB to really encourage the public's participation in this. So this letter has been drafted. I'm welcome to make any changes that you all might have in the meantime. However, I would like to start using this not next week, but the following week whenever we start pushing the sales for the April 23rd event. So ideally, I would like this to be signed by all CIB board members. I know we have a few missing today, but I can certainly get with them after the fact. But in the meantime, if you have any questions over this or have any suggested changes, I'm happy to make that. If not, I'd like to grab your 4 signatures before we leave here today. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this. You will see that there is the Eventbrite link in here because we wanted to have really a call to action or a resource that people could utilize to then purchase their tickets for that gala. So that is included here. That link will become updated over the next week or so with further marketing materials and information, but that link will remain the same, so that should not change. And this is really kind of overarching. It really just depicts what each of these 2 events are, the difference between the 2, but really encourages the public to come to either or both of them.
Not to go into any great detail, but I'd just like to submit a couple things for rewrite on here before I sign it.
Yep, I certainly understand that.
Same, sorry.
Yep.
I know
No,
you sent this out.
please,
I did
no.
not have a chance, but
I
just a
figured,
few.
yeah,
Okay.
no, I figured that would be the case, and I do want this to be, exactly what you want it to say. So if you want to connect with me later this week, I'm happy to do that, and then our team could even come to each of you individually over the next week or so just to get your signature and make it easy on you.
So with it being Wednesday, so revisions by Friday, would that give you enough time?
Yes, I know the mayor's not here this week, so, I would even say maybe Tuesday. I'm fine with that. Because we won't roll this out next week, but the following week we will, if that works with everybody's timeline.
Did you send that to everyone?
No,
You sent it to me.
I did not send
and
it to everyone.
I'm sorry, it was
I
my,
will.
it was my fault.
Nope,
Just
that's
be
fine.
sure all the board members get it. You sent
Yep.
it to me to forward and add the agenda, and it
No,
didn't happen
absolutely.
yesterday.
I will send a recap email then after this meeting to the entire board and then suggest that Tuesday we have all changes and then we'll coordinate with each of you. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there no other old business to bring up, we'll go right into new business, and just heard the discussion on item number 6.1, resolution number 2022-04, adopting the purchase policy. I understand we're to adopt it, and then we'll amend it.
But actually, if somebody will move its adoption and second it, then we'll amend.
I would like to move to adopt resolution number 2022.-04.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt resolution 2022-04.
Okay, then if I can, Mr. President, what I understand the revisions to be is on page 4, changing the item number 1, A1, 5, purchase supplies, A, purchase thresholds, number 1, changing that to $5,000. Changing number 2, between greater than $5,000 and less than $50,000 with the limited required quotations there, eliminating number 3 in its entirety, and then an exclusion, which we'll put probably at the start, for food and beverage purchases. And if that accurately depicts what the board would like to do, if someone, yes?
My
Ms.
only
Conway.
on 3E, if you're eliminating 3, I would prefer 3E to be included, that report to be
Report the
included in
purchase.
2.
Gotcha. I think that's,
Other than that, that's
That's a
everything
good
that I
addition.
had.
okay, so I understand what those amendments are, and if someone would like to move that the policy be amended in accordance with that, and second it, and then adopt that, if that's what you want, and then adopt the resolution in its entirety.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so this is on the amendment now.
On the amendment,
Yes.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Chris, do you have a different recommendation?
I just think at some point, we gotta trust Spectra, and I think Spectra, I mean, this is pretty cut and dry. The $10,000, $25,000. I mean, we keep adding these limits to all these things, and they haven't even gotten off the ground yet. So,
So you're suggesting changing the first level to 10 and
Keep it
make the
10.
second level 10 to 50?
yeah,
You still want 25 in there, or you
no, 10 to 50.
10 to 50?
I honestly can't tell you if there's only a quorum here of 4 and only 3 people vote for
right.
something. I don't think it really passed.
That's right.
So it's going to have 4 votes for the amendment now we're on. For what it's worth, I 100% get what you're saying, Emily. For what it's worth, Tennille tells me there aren't going to be many times when they're buying, if we exclude food and beverage, there are not going to be many $9,500 purchases of supplies after the startup here. You're going to get one more that we're going to put in the form of a resolution here soon.
And we will know about it.
It'll be reported to you monthly. After the fact, we're talking about how much is reported before the fact. When they ask for the next month's operating expenses, we're trying to find the line between overwhelming you with information, but giving you, the finance committee, enough information to say, okay, that makes sense. But, so we're working on that.
My only worry, I mean, my concern is the $10,000, I think is fair, because in case something happens in an emergency where you have a convention a day away, and all of a sudden, excluding food and beverage, something breaks, a kitchenware item or something like that, we have to immediately buy something from B&B Foods, that's $5,100. We're not gonna have the time to quickly react to something like that.
Well, we have the emergency clause, though. That seems to cover that. And like I said, I mean, at 10,000, is there any reason to have 10,000? Do we go up to 25,000 if we're not gonna cap it somewhere? I'm just suggesting that, we get a little heads up on larger purchases.
So really, the policy just says the procedure for that. So it's just, hey, if it's less than 5 or 10, just go buy it with whatever procedure you want. If it's more than 5 or 10, whatever you pick for the limit, we're going to ask you to get quotes.
So we're not approving anything, they're just double checking pricing and.
Which I suspect no matter what figure you could put $10 in there. My experience with this team back here is they're looking hard to try to get the best price. So Up to you.
I'm thinking.
Well, frankly, I didn't vote in that. Are you dead set?
I'm fine, as far as my opinion, I'm fine with either the 5 or the 10, the majority of however we feel. With the report being in there and a budget, I feel that we will know any capital expenses. There's a clause in there if something needs to happen. Again, I'm either way. I just wanted to simplify the process to where we're not giving 72-hour timelines. That was my only recommendation.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm very hesitant at all with passing something without the other three here.
You know, we can, I'm feeling myself as well. You know, if you want to table this one and we bring it back next month, we're happy to. I think we have a plan. We now know, based on the second resolution that you have, where some limitations are. And I just got a feeling that Nations Group or Tennille or somebody will pick the phone up and we'll be sure that things are compliant with state statute and inform the board on items. So if you'd rather hold on this until next month, Mr. President, it's not the end of the world. We just would like to get a purchasing policy in place because Spectre would like to have one so they know what to do. But we can muddle through for another month.
Will that affect you, Tennille, in any way?
The only concerns I have right now is just getting through the rest of our FF&E list and our smallwares purchases. So we've got, there's a long list of items that still need to be purchased. And a lot of those can't wait until next month. Now, there are some items that are $300, $1,500, but then there are some that are $8,000, $12,000, which is, it's big, long lists of supplies and such. So just being able to know that, can we start making those purchases so that we can have those items ready to be delivered to the building once we're in there before the events start happening? We just need to make sure that we're able to do that.
Mr. Rollins expressed that concern also. He had a stack of items that they wanted some direction on, so which is why I put it on the agenda this month for the policy. So if I can make a recommendation, pick a number. I don't care if it's 5 or 10. And it doesn't make that much difference because 5 says you don't need to get a quote. I'm sorry, under 10, the way it's written now, you don't need to get a quote, just buy it. I think you can rest assured that Tennille's and her team are going to they're going to shop before they get something. That above 10 just requires them to try to get some quotes. So it doesn't require them to accept the lowest item. It just requires information, essentially. So I guess I'd recommend that you do adopt it this month so we can get these other purchases taken care of. And it doesn't really matter which pick on 5 or 10 from my perspective.
I mean, legally, haven't we already adopted resolution number 2022-04?
No, and you haven't even adopted. All you've done is made a motion and seconded it, attempted to amend it, which has not happened, was not successful. So the resolution itself has not been voted on yet. I would like you to amend the couple of things. I think the changing to combine from whatever the low number is to 50 into one process and move the report up from my arbitrary division.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to amend Resolution 2022-04 to state that the $10,000 limit is in place for anything exceeding $10,000, then up to $50,000, excluding food and beverage for the purchase. And
Did you want to move capital items from 25 to 10?
And are we excluding food and beverage under the 10? I know we were
You're
at
excluding
5.
food and beverage, period.
Okay.
Because literally, they may be making a purchase in a week of, $12,000. I mean, you hope, not Not this year
I hope
probably,
you do
but maybe
too.
next year.
We have to get rid of that one first, don't we?
Which one?
The one that,
No, it
No,
was,
didn't.
it failed.
It failed
It
because
failed.
there wasn't a
So
quorum.
so Terry's made a new motion.
I'm making a new motion to amend it to where the minimum, actually, based off of this, I don't need to change
It's
the
10 to
minimum
50.
because it is 10
It's
on
10 to
here.
50.
So I'm only making the motion that we eliminate
The third, category
5
3.
A3, yes.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of E, that the report remain in place.
Got it.
And add the exclusion of food and beverage expense.
Okay.
I will second that.
Better do a roll call.
the motion is, I'm sorry.
The motion to amend's been made, so you vote on the motion to amend, and then we'll vote on the resolution.
The motion has been made and seconded to amend the motion. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Did you vote, Mr. President?
Aye.
Okay, good. All right, now you need to adopt motion 2022-04 as amended.
With the amendments in place, I need a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-04.
So moved,
As amended.
as amended.
Agreed.
You're good? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Was there a second to that?
Terry.
Terry? Okay, I just want to be sure Karen had it. Okay, I would ask you to sign that resolution today, and we will attach to the signed resolution the revised policy, and Karen and I have worked this out before, so we'll make sure that that's on your records and ours. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7, other business.
We still have resolution 2022
Oh, boy.
dash
20-05.
05, and I'm sorry, I rarely have typos in the agenda, and I had 2 in this one, so I apologize for that. So,
yeah,
yeah,
204s.
item 6.2 is the special purchase, and that's the $116,000 worth of glassware, dinnerware, pots and pans, and all fatigue mats, all the things that make convention center life worth living. And I'm sure Tennille, if you would like to hear more about the quotation process, which she and her team went through, I'm sure Tennille would be happy to offer that.
I have no questions. Thank you for allowing us to voice our opinions. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-05.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to pass, to accept Resolution 2022-05. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. A fork is $18? I was going to say, we'll have to have a screening to check everybody leaving. Okay. Item 7.1, any questions or comments?
I think you better clarify that in case the press is listening, that a fork is not $18. How many forks was that, Tennille? That's 12 forks,
It was a bad joke.
$18. Sometimes those get reported.
Yes. Any questions or comments from the board members?
Yeah, so one more time, I want to talk about Tammy York Allen's role in the Capital Improvement Board. Yesterday, she had no time to work on this stuff throughout the day, so she stayed after work yesterday for almost an hour and did that. She's not paid to do that. So in some instance, moving forward, we have got to figure out how we're either going to pay her as a contractual person after hours to do this on her own time, or if we need to have a set person involved with the Capital Improvement Board do this. But we still have to figure that out.
So if I can add, we did discuss this last year because there was the same feeling about Tammy's after hours. I contact her on the weekend. I mean, I'm not taking an hour of her time, but
Yeah.
asking her to post things and do things. She does things beyond her normal. And the solution in working with the former county attorney And I don't know that I've discussed it with the current county attorney, but our opinion was you had to amend the salary resolution. To do that, you could augment her salary through that. I don't think you could just contractually pay her separately from that outside of the salary resolution. But if you put, CIB administrator part-time or something like that, whatever you want to call it, and put a stipend in there in your salary resolution, that could be paid by the CIB.
Well, can we work together then, Brian, in
Happy
some
to.
capacity to get something wrote up so I can go to the council?
I'm
and
very
ask
happy
that?
to do so.
Okay.
Anything further?
In Tribune this morning, there was an article about Senate committee that's had a hearing on the tax bill going through the legislature. And one article said the committee added language concerning food and beverage that would phase it out. Should we be concerned about that?
All food and beverage taxes across the state?
That's what it says. It says the committee also added language
Oh,
from
here comes
Senate Bill
Jason.
390 regarding food and beverage taxes, which would phase it out
Looks like
over the
utilities.
next
Looks like
20 years.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up after the meeting, Brian, if you knew about that. Yeah, it's Senate Bill 390 that I think it's, all food and beverage except for maybe, the donut counties or Marion County. The food and beverage would be phased out either, I think, 2042 or when bonds are paid off. So I was going to ask you about that, so, yeah.
I get all my information from
Yeah,
Jim, so
so,
I have
yeah, that bill is out there, and I know there's a lot of counties that are using the food and beverage that are talking to the legislators of how that would impact
So that
theirs.
was in the House then?
It's Senate Bill 390,
It's been
yeah.
in the House,
Well,
the bills have
here-
switched.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. It was in a House bill and the Senate
it's
did
390.
yesterday put it in their bill.
So our bond obligation will be met by 2042 though, right?
Yeah, but we anticipate the food and beverage would also be used to help operate the facility.
Right.
So that's the concern.
And your bond is on general revenues, not tied solely to food and beverage. Although, we all know you're making your payments from food and beverage.
That's interesting.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Should we also consider an extra stipend for the auditor for handling all of our invoices?
Here, you can't change it. But Karen and
And just so we're making sure we account and take care of our own business.
it takes a lot of Karen's time also, and people that take care of who write the checks. And then the other thing to look into is the county's currently undergoing that revision of our salary schedule. Baker Tilly's reworking all the job descriptions in the county. And those additional, CIB didn't exist when we did it the last time, so that there may, I would think that those additional responsibilities for those people should be included in their new job descriptions, which should, be accounted for in the new compensation schedules that come out. Hopefully.
And we actually drafted a brief description of, the last time there was a discussion about supplementing Ms. York Allen's
Yeah,
salary. So
I went to the council with that one, but they
Yeah.
weren't having it, so. We were able to get her pay up a little bit.
All right, if there's nothing further, our next regular board meeting will be March the 16th, 2022. We are adjourned.